All right. Good morning, students. So we'll be starting with the third chapter today. I'll wait for 2 more minutes for all the students to join. And once they join, we will start. Okay. The class will start right in 2 minutes. Okay. So I hope I'm audible to you. If I'm not audible to you, then immediately you write it on the comment box and then I'll reset up my audio. Now, let's start with chapter number 3, one of the most important chapter from your examination point of view, and one of the most critical chapter when it comes to understanding. Now, this third chapter, I'm dividing into 3 parts. Okay, first part, second part, third part. Now, sir, why are you dividing it into 3 parts? Is very simple. The first part is something I call it as full toss. In cricket, you get full toss balls, very easy balls to hit. And the second part, I'm calling it as, the short pitch. Not that difficult, not that easy. But the third part, I'm going to call it as bouncers. Okay. So whenever you start reading it, most of the syllabus goes above your head. So today, we'll be talking about the first part in today's class. As the part 1, we will only talk about the part 1. Then let us talk about part 2. Then let us talk about part 3 in our upcoming classes. Now, who should be watching this video? First thing is the people who have their examination immediately next, they should be watching this video. And I believe that you have done your 1 round of revision, or at least you have turned the pages to see what is there in this chapter. If you have not done it, then if you just want to get an idea about what is there in this chapter, then also you can send watch. So any doubts you have, you can write it in the comment box, and probably at the end of the session, I'll be taking it. So in part 1, which I call it as the full toss, the easiest portion, that is, there is 25 questions. Okay. So I'll be teaching from this material, not from the institute material, from our material, which you can download from OneFin application. I hope you already have this material with you. If you don't have it, quickly go to that application and download that and sit. So because we'll be discussing questions and answers only from this material. And if you go through this material, it is more than enough for you to clear your examination. All right. Because we have covered almost all the possible questions from previous RTPs, mock test, question papers, study material, and we have put in this material. Okay. All right. So before I start with the third chapter, let me give idea as to what exactly we are going to study in this third chapter. Okay, so what is that we are going to study? Let me give you very simple example first. Let's say this is my calculator. All right, this is my calculator. When I say my calculator, I only use it. When I say I use it, what do I mean? Let's say I want to total 2 numbers. Okay, I want to know what is 100 plus 200. I want to know what is 100 plus 200. So what am I going to do? I am going to tell my calculator, look, I want to add 2 numbers, and I am going to type it on the keypad. So the calculator understands what I am typing it. So I will call it as I'll call it as what? I'll call it as input. Now what is input? Input means I am giving instruction to the system. Now once I add 100 plus 200, what happens then? The calculator will process, and when I press on is equal to, calculator will give me the answer. So there are 3 things happening. One is input, where I'm giving the numbers to the calculator, that is called as input thing. Then calculator totals these 2 numbers, we call it as process. Then after totaling, what the calculator will do, it is going to give me the output. I call it as output process. So there are 3 things involved here. There is input, there is process, then there is output. Very simple. Now, earlier days, earlier days, the computers were just like these calculators. Now, what do I mean by that? The computers were standalone computers. What do you mean by standalone computer? Standalone means your computer is like your calculator. It is not connected to the next calculator. So what you do in your calculator remains in your calculator. Earlier days, when people started using computers, it was standalone. That is, they are only giving the input, their computer is processing that information, and their computer is giving them the output. Very simple world it was. Then people realized, well, we can connect one computer with another computer. Okay, then came the networking. They said we can connect all the computers in one room. Okay, if there is 10 computers in one room, they said that we can connect all the 10 computers in one room, and then they called it as LAN, local area network. Then they decided not just all the computers in one room, we can connect all the computers in one city, and then they called it as WAN, wide area network. Then they realized not just city, we can connect all the computers of the world, and then they called it as internet. So from standalone computer, that is computer input processing and output happening one single computer, we move towards connecting one computer with all the computers in the world. So this technological changes happened in past 20 years. Now, when we connected our computer with different computers, what started happening? I'll give a very simple example to you. Earlier days, a practical example. Earlier days, let us say, I want to convert one PDF file into one Word file. Okay. So let us say I have a PDF file with me and I want to edit something out of this particular PDF. So I can't edit the PDF. So I wanted it to be in the Word format. Now, how can I convert PDF file into Word file? So earlier days, when I used to use standalone system, what I would do, I would download the software in my computer. There would be softwares to convert these things. So I would download those softwares into my system. Then I would process it. Then I would convert it into Word file. Simple. No risk involved because there is no risk. Why? Because the input, the PDF is also in my computer only. Processing is also happening in my computer only. Output, the Word file is also there in my computer only. Absolutely no risk. But now what we do normally, if I have to convert PDF file into Word file, I don't download a software. I go to Google and I will type convert PDF into Word and some website will open. Now what happens when the website opens? They ask, what do you want to do? I say convert PDF to Word. They will say, okay, then give us PDF. Now the question is, where is input? Input is not there in your system anymore. You are uploading the PDF document to some other computer, to some other computer. Now in their computer, the processing is happening. In their computer, the processing is happening. In their computer, the output is happening. All that I'm doing is just downloading that. Now imagine that PDF contains some crucial information, some sensitive information. For example, let us say that PDF contained your salary details, your income details, or let's say your medical, your health history, okay, or some business secrets, and you wanted to convert into Word. But now what happened? All your data is not with you, it is with somebody else. Now the question is, how do you ensure that the other person who is processing your data is not misusing your data? Okay, so normally this question we don't even ask because we assume that in world everybody is saint. Okay, we think that everybody is very good human beings. They will never misuse, but in reality, people always misuse anything which is given to them. So the purpose of third chapter is to ensure that as a student, as a future chartered accountant, you realize how important the data is. Okay, what is the importance of data, and what are the different processes involved, and how can you assure that your data is protected. Okay, that is crux of your third chapter. Okay, any questions till now? You can post it here. If there is no question, then I'll continue with the directly from question number 1. Okay, I don't see any questions. Let's start let's start with question 1. They say define system and give examples. Explain business enterprise as a system. First question is define a system. It is a very general question. Define a system. Now you should not think complicated answers. System, have you heard this term before? Right from my primary education, I've been hearing the word system again and again. For example, they say solar system, they say education system, they say political system. Okay, so I've been hearing this word from my childhood. So they are asking, what do you mean by system? Okay, so if somebody says our education system is not proper, that is where we need to change our education system, what are they referring to? So the answer starts with something very simple. It says system is a interrelated and interacting elements. It is interrelated elements and interacting elements that operate collectively to accomplish some common purpose goal. Let's talk about education system. So when I say education system, am I only referring to some teacher walking into the class and directly delivering the classes? No. Education system means there should be theoretical education, there should be practical education, there should be physical education. You need to go to ground and play. So what is the purpose of education system? It is to empower a student into becoming a better citizen. Okay, that is the purpose of education system. So there has to be one common goal. So all the lecturers, all the teachers, entire school is trying to ensure that the student understands what is taught to him. That is what something called as system. Okay, we call it as education system. So here they're saying system is a set of interrelated and interacting elements. So there are different elements: theoretical education, practical education, physical education, and produce, and that operate collectively. They operate together to accomplish some common goal, that is making a student into a better citizen. Now they now let us talk about manufacturing system. So in manufacturing system, what happens? So there is a input, that input gets processed, and then there is a output. So they say in system, basically there is input, then there is a process, what happens, then you manufacture the output. Student comes to first standard, then till 10th standard or 12th or 15th or 18th, whatever it is, there is a process what is happening, then at the end there is a output. He becomes a educated person or a literate person. Now, so we already discussed, in a system there is always an input, there is processing, then there is output. Rest you can just read it through and you will understand. Okay, so that is question number one, very basic question. For examination they normally don't ask question number one, not very important. Now let us understand question number two, that is enumerate the characteristic of a CBIS. Now you need to understand this question properly. Okay, now question number two, what is computer based information system? See, earlier I said system can be anything. System can be education, political, your digestive system, your solar system. So system could be anything. But here this chapter is not that we are going to study all those systems. We are going to specifically study something called as computer based information system. So there has to be computer that we need to use. So they are talking about enumerate the characteristics of computer based information system, or they can ask the same question in another manner. They will say, explain the different components of computer based information system. Now two way they can ask this question: either tell the characteristic or tell the components of CBIS. Answer is same. Okay, so when I talk about computer based information system, I am referring to not just computer. Okay, I am not just referring to one desktop, one CPU. No, when I say computer based information system, I'm referring to five things. Which are those? I am talking about people, I'm talking about hardware, I'm talking about software, I'm talking about data, I'm talking about network. All five things we will discuss in detail, don't worry. But whenever you see an examination question, you should write about these five things, nothing else. Now, what is people? Now, people basically refers to the people who use the computer. People. Now, I want you to imagine in an organization, let's take example of bank, who use computers, who use information system there. Now, the clerk uses information system, The manager uses information system. The cashier uses your information system. Information system in the sense computer who are using these computers. Now there could be your customers who are using computer system. For example, nowadays you yourself can print your passbook, or you yourself can withdraw the cash, or you yourself can deposit the cash directly into the kiosk machine. So even you are the part of information system. So whenever I'm talking about people, I am not just talking about those software engineers who are sitting in some basement and typing some code. No, I am talking about every person who uses the system. Okay, they could be people from help desk, or they could be CIOs. Now who are the CIOs? That is chief information officer. So in any organization, CIO is the topmost position for the information system person. Okay. So for a management, it is CEO. For the finance, it is CFO. And for this information system, it is CIO. About this, we will study somewhere when we are talking about 25th question. We will talk about different persons. But as of now, when I talk about people, I am referring to, whenever I'm talking about people, I'm referring to any people who are using this system. Now, next component, well, it is very not properly arranged here, so let me go to question number 7. Okay, the same question here, the same question is repeated, but we are asking components. I said whenever they ask either define what it is or write the components, you have to write this. So people is done. So whenever we talk about hardware, we are talking about tangible things, what we can see in the system. Well, when it comes to computer, what are the things that you can see? Monitor, you can see. Mouse, okay, mouse, you can see. Keyboard, you can see. Speaker, you can see. Okay, so this is something called as hardware. Now, whenever I say CPU, can you see the CPU? Answer is yes. Can you open the CPU? Answer is yes. So anything and everything that is tangible to you, which you can see and touch, is something called as hardware. Okay. Now, more about it we will study in the next part. Just to give you the idea about what are the components of CBIS. So first comes is people who uses the system, then there is hardware, then there is software. Okay, then there is software. Now what is this software? Now there are basically two types of software which we are going to study in your syllabus. The first type is operating system. The second type is application software. Now, can you give me an example of an OS that you know, operating system? Okay, I want you to write in the comment box. Give me an example of operating system that you have heard of. Okay, so somebody said iOS is operating system. Good. Okay, iOS is an operating system for Apple devices. For Android, okay, the smartphone what most of us use, Android is the operating system. Okay, for the laptops what we use, or for the PCs what we use, Windows is the operating system. Okay, so this is one type of software which I'm talking about. Can you think of some applications that we use? What are the different apps that we use? Okay, it could be in phone, I use WhatsApp, that is an application software. In phone, let us say I use Gmail. Okay, there is an app called as Gmail, that is a application software. What else? There is Telegram, then there is Instagram, then there is Facebook. All these apps in my phone, these are all application software. But these are two broad classification. One is operating software and one is application software. We will talk about what is the distinction between these two in the upcoming question. Just to give you idea about, there are two different types of software what we are going to study. Next, the most important one is data. Most important one is data. Now, what exactly is data? Data is nothing but it is a collection of facts. Okay, it is collection of facts, that is called as data. For example, if I have to talk about in real life, once you become chartered accountant, your client will approach you. Now let's say you are opening a very general practice, not specializing anything, but you are, let's say you are doing tax practice. So one client comes to you and he will give you his all bank passbook, he will give all the sales details, all the purchase details. Now it is a data for you. It is a data for you, and it is your responsibility as a chartered accountant to take care of that data, because your client is giving that data to you, trusting that you are going to keep that data in the safe custody. Okay. So what is data? Here they say data are facts that are used by programs to produce useful information. Now, the client gives all his sales details, purchase details, bank transaction details. Now, as a chartered accountant, what are you going to do? You are going to prepare his balance sheet, his financial statements. So this financial statement is an information. For you to prepare the information, you need the data. Okay, so this is the basic understanding. Now, there might be different types of data. We will discuss about it in further questions. Then the last one is network. Now, network is the sole purpose why we are studying this subject, because now one computer is connected to all the computer in the world. Okay, so network means you're connecting computer with some other computer. It could be another computer in the same room, or it could be another computer in anywhere in the world. So we'll discuss about network aspect as well. But in a nutshell, when I talk about CBIS, I am referring to 5 things. What are those? People, hardware, software, data, and network. Now, now let us go to question number 3. Okay, one is done, two discussion is done. Now, this is an important question from your examination point of view. Question number 3. Read the question. What does the question say? Write short note on information system. Okay, so what is your subject name? It is enterprise information system. Now, first they're asking, what do you mean by information system? Forget about enterprise information system. What do you mean by IS? What do you mean by information system? So again, the answer starts the same way. Information system is a combination of what? 5 things. What are those? People, hardware, software, communication devices, network, and data. Now, communication devices are a part of network, so don't worry. That processes the data to produce information. Okay, so we use these 5 things to process the data and to give information to the users. Okay, next, the system needs input from the users, we already studied, which will then be processed using technology devices such as computers and produce output that will be sent to another user or other system via a network, and a feedback that controls the operation. Simple thing. Let me give an example to you. Let's say earlier days, uh, this accounting was done by humans. Okay, how would they do the accounting? They only would manually get all the documents. They would pass the journal entry, then they would pass the ledger entry, then the post the ledger entry, then prepare respective accounts, trial balance, balance sheet, profit and loss account. So everything was manual. But now what are we doing? We are, we are taking those journal entries, or we are taking those bookkeeping data, and we are directly entering it into computer. And now computer itself is processing everything and giving me the balance sheet. Okay, so whenever I talk about information system in this chapter, I am referring to use of computers. I'm referring to use of computers. Now, if an accountant himself in his hand passes journal entry, makes ledger, trial balance, balance sheet, profit and loss account, do I call it as information system? Answer is no. In this subject, in this chapter, I don't call it that as an information system. For me to call something as an information system, I should use technology. If I don't use technology, then it is not an information system in this chapter, in this subject. Okay, I want you to be very clear. So technology use should be important. Now, third point, the main aim and purpose of each information system. What is the purpose of information system? They say it is to convert the data into information which is meaningful and useful. Convert the journal entry into balance sheet, into profit and loss account. So that when you look at it, you can understand, oh, the entity made profit in this year. Oh, the entity has this much of or liabilities. Okay. Now, why do we have this information system? So they say an information system is an arrangement of a number of elements that provides effective information for what? So if I have balance sheet, if I have profit and loss account, why do I need that? For me to make a decision. Okay, should I increase my sale? Should I decrease my prices? Should I open new branch? All this decision making requires information, and from where this information comes, it comes from using information system. Okay, so again they're talking about what are the different components. We already discussed about this, and then they're again talking about an information system model comprises of following steps. Now remember, and see, this can be a different question altogether. All right, this point, that is, the information system model comprise the following steps. It is also your study material question. What are the different steps in an information system model? There are basically three steps. There is input, there is process, there is output. We discussed the calculator example. I first enter the data, calculator processes the data, and it gives me the output. Okay. Next. Now, one more question is, what are the basic activities of information system model? Now they are talking about activities. Now activities also same thing. There is a input happening, there is a process happening, then there is output. What is happening? There is input, there is processing, then there is output. At the same time, there is something extra, that is something called as feedback. Okay. Now what exactly is feedback? Feedback simply says, let us say that you're trying to open your some Gmail ID. You're trying to sign up, you're trying to create a new account. So there they ask, enter your first name. Okay, so now you're supposed to type your first name, whatever your name could be. But when you type your name, that is the input what you give. There is a input what you give. Now the software, the Gmail, will take that input and processes it, and it will create a Gmail ID for you. But let us say, when you write your name, instead of writing your name, you will write a number. Okay, you write a number, let's say 730. Now Gmail will not create a email ID, but it will give you a feedback saying what? The data what you inserted is not proper. Okay, data what you have inserted is not proper. So this is also a part of information system model. Okay, there is input, there is processing, there is storage or output, what we call it as. Then there is something called as feedback. Now, so first four questions are done. Again, I'm repeating, I'm just giving you a broad idea because these are the revision classes. I cannot, explain each and every word. Okay. So what I'm going to try is to give you a fundamental idea of what we are going to study. Now let us go to question number 5. Read the question. I'll give an example so that it becomes very easy for you to understand, but read the question. Okay. Write short note on information processing cycle. Okay. Now, to understand what the 5 points what they've written, let me give an example to you. Now, COVID has come. Okay, because of COVID, you might have heard that all the bigger companies are firing or laying off or reducing the size of their employees. Okay, let us say my organization, just for sake of example, let us say my organization earlier had 100 employees, but because of COVID, my business has taken a bad hit and I cannot run my business. So what do I decide? I say, well, earlier I had 100 employees. Now I want to have only 70 employees. What does it mean? I have to fire 30 employees. Whether I like it or not, for me to run the business, I have to fire 30 employees. Now the question is, how do I know whom to fire? Okay. So now if I'm going to ask that question to you, in your company, there are 100 people and you are supposed to fire 30 people. How are you going to fire them? How are you going to fire them? I'm not asking that, are you going to write an email to them or, you're going to go to them or phone them. I'm asking, how are you going to shortlist that, these are the 30 people I'm supposed to fire? How are you going to do that? Write down. Okay. Now, first thing is the step number 1, identify its information needs. That is, for me to fire 30 people, I decide, okay, let me see out of 100 who are the top 70 performers, who are the top 70 performers, and rest 30 who are not that good performers, I'm going to lay them off, I'm going to fire them. So identifies information need. So I need information about 70 good employees. I need information about 70 good employees. Now, so first is my identifies information need. So I have identified what is the information I want. I want information of out of this 100 who are the best 70s and who are not so good 30s. Next one is acquire that information from various sources. Now, whether employee is good or not, how do I understand? Maybe I can ask with other employees, their seniors, their managers, or I can ask with my clients saying that, which employee you are more comfortable with and which employee you find not so professionals. So there are various sources I can collect this information from. Okay, I can also go through their attendance records, who are most regular, who comes properly at 9:30. Okay, if there is somebody who comes every day at 10:30, then I may say that, okay, this is the employee who's not regular, so let me put them in the bottom 30. Okay, so acquire the information from various sources, then organize them in a meaningful way. I have to organize them in a meaningful way, that, let's say I'm preparing a spreadsheet. I have to enter there, or I have to record properly in at least one book. Okay, so that it becomes a fair decision. Next, ensure information quality. Just because somebody told that that employee is not good, I cannot write it in my book saying that, I want to fire this guy. Maybe this other employee does not like that person, that is where he is, saying that employee has to be fired. So I have to ensure whether the quality of information is good or not. So once I feel that, okay, all the information is proper, then what do I do? I will load this information into some software, some program, some tools, which will do the analytics, and it will tell, well, we have analyzed all the information which we had, and on the basis of our analysis, these are the top 70 people and these are the top 30 people. So what are you going to do? You're going to write an email to all these 30 people and say, with deep heart, we have to fire you. But once you do that, you at least can go to your bed peacefully, thinking that you did not do any partiality. You went with the help of your data. So that is a question. Write a short note on information processing cycle. How do you process a information? So these are the different steps. Okay, I hope you are clear with question number 5. If it is, we can go to next question. Read question number 6. Differentiate between a manual information processing and computer based information processing. Read it. Now there is one question. Before I take the next question, there is a one question which is asked by one of the students. So what is the difference between intranet and extranet? See, intranet means, let's say you are an organization, let's say you are a school. Okay, so all the computers in the school are connected with one common network. This is called as intranet. Okay, then there is something called as extranet. Extranet is not internet. Now, extranet means, let's say there is a network of your school and one student is now at home because of your lockdown, because of COVID situation, he is somewhere out, but he wants to access some classes which is there in this school network. Okay, so if a college provides for some way in which this student can access this information being outside the school, we call it as extranet. Okay, normally banks use this. Okay, so banking data are not normal available for everybody, but let us say that one new bank account has to be opened. So what will they do? Earlier days you had to go to the bank, but now the bank people in the private banks, they will come to your home. Now they will come with an iPad and then they will say, what is your name, what is your PAN, what is your Aadhaar. Now whatever the information they are storing, they are not storing in their iPad or whatever the device that they have. They are storing the data in the banking servers. Now how this iPad is connected to that banking server is with the help of extranet. Okay, I hope this is very clear to you. Any other questions you have? Okay, I see no questions. Good. Let's go forward. Differentiate between manual information processing and computer based information processing. Very general answer, not a very technical answer. Simple way. Already I discussed earlier days what accountant would come and he would write all the entries, ledgers, trial balance, balance sheet, profit and loss account. So it is a manual information processing. Information is being processed from data. We are still arriving at the balance sheet, but everything manually. But in CBIS, what do? I use what? 5 different components. I use technology. For what purpose? To convert data into information. So the purpose is same in manual as well as CBS. The purpose is to convert the data into useful information, but the approach is different. Okay. So they have given concept. So these are the systems where the level of manual intervention is very high. That is, accountant only is doing everything. But in CBIS, it is very less. It is very less. You just pass one journal entry, rest everything computer will do. Okay, write to your balance sheet, computer will do. This is the concept of what is manual and what is CBIS. Then if I'm talking about inputs, now, how do you give inputs in manual processing? Nothing, you write it on a piece of paper. But in computer, how do you do it? Maybe you type it into the computer, or maybe you use some barcode scanners, QR code scanners, and then you give the input to the system. Now process. How do you process it? First, you summarize the information using various arithmetic logical processes. So there is like huge sales register. Then what do? You total every sale, then you post it to the profit and loss accounts. What do? You actually summarize the data. You actually summarize the data in order to produce the meaningful reports. But here, what do? You don't summarize it. It is automatically posted to the concerned profit and loss account. Well, it is kind of technical aspect. The more about it, you will study in chapter number 2. Next, again, there is, if you're talking about output, okay, we are talking about output in manual accounting or in manual information processing. What actually happens, the output is also again the paper. You may maximum, you can have charts, but in computer based information system, you can have different types of graphs, different types of reports. These are the very basic differences what we study. Then if you're talking about storages, in manual it is paper form, you store it. Here it is electronic form, and they're giving some examples here. Then what is advantages and disadvantages? Very basic information you can read on your own. Now question number 7 we already discussed. Okay. Question number 7 we already discussed. What are the components? There are 5 things. Again, I'm going to quickly repeat. There is, what are those? You also have to tell tell it yourself. What are the 5 components? There is people, there is hardware, there is software, there is data, and then there is network. Okay. Now, I said I'm going to explain all these 5 things one by one. Now it is time for us to learn about people. Who are these people? About which we already discussed, but I'm going to explain it again so that it remembers, it stays in your mind. Oh, thank you, Vinay. Vinay is asking me to drink some water. All right. So now let us talk about people. I said people are not just those people who are, typing some software. No, people means everybody who uses this information system. Okay, the same thing they're talking here. Look at it. People constitute the most important elements in almost all computer-based information system. Very general point. Okay, very general point. There is nothing to explain there. Like, this is one of the important component. Okay, it's important. This is the next point. They say it includes both. It both includes internal users and external users. Internal users means the people who are working for the organization. I said, let's take example of bank. I said people means it could include clerk, it include manager, cashier. So these are the internal people. Who are the external ones? External ones could be the customers who are directly depositing cash or withdrawing cash. So people could be internal as well as external. Here. Now, Within the entity, people include system users and information system personnel. That is all the people who manage, run, program, and maintain the system. So now they are also talking about, when we talk about internal, it also includes people who manages the system, all the software engineers, software architects, CIOs, and CISO, CISOs, chief information security officers. So all these people who work towards ensuring that information system is proper. Even these people are considered as people in components. Now, internal users may be at all levels of entity hierarchy. Okay, there could be end users, there could be programmers, there could be system analysts, there could be database administrator. So what are these people? I'll come back to the same point in 25th question. Okay, so the 25th question explains what are the different roles in the organization. I'll talk about it now. Let us not discuss about it. Okay, but trust me, 25th question I'll take up this. Who are these different people? Now all the person from help desk is the basic. Now let us say that you go to some hospital and your friend is admitted in the hospital. So what do? You directly go to the counter. You directly don't run in all the wards to find your friend. Okay, so what do? You go to the help desk and you say, my friend's name is so and so, in which ward he is admitted. So they will look at the computer, they will say, okay, it is located in some this particular ward. So they who gave you the information are the people who are working in help desk. They are also part of this information system. So as basic as that, to the super senior level, that is CIOs, they are also part of this information system. Now role of, again, the last point is very general. Okay, first point is very general, last point is also very general. They say role of people is significant in terms of innovation. So if you have good software developers in your organization will grow faster than other organization. Okay, simple point. Okay, clear with question number 8? Any questions that you have, you can ask now. Okay, let's go to question number 9. Explain the following terms in the context of hardware in CBIS. I said in CBIS there are 5 things. People we discussed. No more discussion on people. Okay, the 25th question is, but ignore that now. As of now, people discussion is done. Next one is we are going to talk about hardware. Okay, now they are talking about, look, when we talk about hardware, we broadly classify them as, see, one is input devices, one is input devices, next one is processing devices, and the next one is data storage devices. I'll explain what are these things. Data storage devices. Then we have something called as output devices. That's it. 4 things. Input devices, processing devices, storage devices, and output devices. Now let us talk about input devices. Now input devices means the devices in which you give instruction to the computer, instruction to the information system. It could be your computer, it could be your printer, it could be your mobile phone, it could be anything, any system. How do you interact with that system? Now earlier days everything was typing. Okay, earlier days you had your type based mobile phones where Nokia 1100, Nokia 3310, all those phones. So how would you give instruction to the system? How would you type a message? How would you type a message? You would do, press numbers. If you have to type C, you would press 2 thrice, A, B, C, all those good old memories. But it was type based. Okay, it was a keyboard what we used to use. But now we have, you know the touch screen phones. So here we don't type anything. We just point to what we want. Okay, so it is touch based ones. The latest technology, we use something called as Alexa, we use Siri, we use Google to give voice commands. So all these are the different ways we can give instruction to the system. So what are the different devices that we see? We see keyboards to type and give instruction to the system. We use mouse. We use mouse to give instruction to the system. We use scanners in all these shopping mall, supermarts. What you do, you just scan it. Okay, so they don't type it, they just scan it and the system stores that information. So you can use these scanners as well. You can use these microphones as well. So in phone, I can simply say, some command, and I can say, hey Google, and Google will start uh, processing the data what I give it to it. Then we use something called as stylus. Now, what is this stylus? Stylus basically means this device, what you can see, this is, there is different names, but basically this is a stylus. This is the pencil what we used to write. I call it as an Apple pencil. For other devices in Samsung, we call it as stylus. Okay, so this is stylus, or there could be touch screen. I just use my finger to touch it. These are all the input devices. Then let us talk about processing devices. Okay. Any questions in input device that you have? Okay. So there is no question which I see. Let us go to processing devices. What is processing device? Simply says, it only says processing device is a device which processes the data and gives you the information. Now, technically, if we were to talk about processing device, we have CPU. We are actually talking about CPU. The big box, what you see, the below your computer, the big box, that is CPU. In smartphones, it is there inside. It is there inside. So what is CPU? They say CPU is the actual hardware that interprets and executes the program. Okay, this is the actual hardware which interprets and executes the program in your system. And trust me, you don't have to understand the technicality. This is not what is expected out of you as a chartered accountant. You just have to know the very basics of it. If I say all the codes are executed in binary 10111010, you don't have to study it. Okay. That is a job of computer engineers. Let them study. They will not study the accounts what you study. They will not study the tax what you study. So let us also not study what they study. But let us understand what they do. One is there is CPU which executes all the programs in the computer. Next one is CPU is built on small flake of silicon and contains the equivalent of several million transistors. Now, what is this transistors? I am pretty sure when in your childhood you would have opened one calculator, and when you open that calculator, you see that green color one motherboard kind of structure. That is what they're referring to. So it has lot of uh, transistors which actually processes your data. Okay, and then one more general point what they're actually making, they're like CPU is the brain of the computer. It is where actual thinking happens, and its main function it is to execute program. Execute the program. Now, what is basically executing any program is? Now, when I say very simple instruction, what is 100 plus 200? This is the instruction what I give it to it, and it executes the program. It gives the answer to me. Okay, so that is what it does. Next, now CPU consists of functional units. Okay, so let's have a basic understanding. I will not go into very technical part, but even if I have to give very, in a very simple manner, in computer, let us say there are three people in one CPU. There are three people who are sitting. Okay, so let us name them as control unit, arithmetic and logical unit, and registers. Okay, these are three people. Now in these three, one person who actually does the work, one person who actually does the work is ALU, that is arithmetic and logical unit. He does the actual work. Now, the problem with arithmetic and logical unit is he does one work at a time. Okay, he can't do 10 work at a time. He does one work at a time, but very fast he does, but only one work at a time. Then there is one more person, somebody called as register. Somebody called as register. Now, what is the function of register? Register is the person who is actually, throwing the work. Okay, he is actually throwing the work to this arithmetic logical unit. Now, he throws hundreds of work at once. If you give hundreds of work at once, ALU will say, no, no, I can't take so many work. Give me one by one. That is where we put something called as control unit in the middle. So what does control unit do? See, as the name says, it controls. It controls the flow of data and instruction. So let me give one very simple example to understand. Imagine there is a hotel, and in that hotel there is a chef who does the actual cooking. Okay, then there is a waiter, okay, who collects order from all the customers and comes, screams and says like, I want this, I want that, I want that. And once the chef gets so much order at once, he will say, wait, I can't cook all this at once. So there we have a manager in the middle. So manager says, this manager is control unit. He will take, okay, one order from register, then he will give it to ALU, and ALU is the one who cooks and gives the data back to control unit. Control unit again sends it to register. So this is how computer functions. If you understand this, more than enough. Sir, I want to actually learn what exactly it is, how I want, how this actually functions. No, you don't have to study. You join some computer classes. Okay, not in EIS. Okay. So any questions you have? Correct, correct. So there is a student, there is Prakyat, who is saying that, sir, there is no accumulator address registers in November 20 module. Correct. So this was there earlier for May examination. What was supposed to happen, which did not happen. This portion was there. You can safely cut down. You can safely cut down. Okay. You don't have to study this. They again spoke about how does this register functions. Then institute only realized why student has to study this. No point. So they removed it. So we spoke about what are the input devices, what are the input devices, what are the processing devices. Next, let us talk about data storage devices. Storage devices, you should be knowing much more than me. So there is internal memory. Now, when I talk about internal memory, I am talking about register. I am talking about registers. I said registers are the one who take instructions, like a waiter who takes instruction, and then what do? They throw it to ALU. Directly, they don't throw it to ALU. They first give it to control units, and then it is sent to them. So registers are the very small memory. Okay, it is a very small but extremely fast. They do so many work at once that like lakhs and lakhs of instruction they execute at once. So these are something called as internal memory. Okay. Now then we have something called as primary memory. Okay, we have something called as primary memory. So whenever you buy a mobile phone, now there is that discussion which goes, which mobile phone should I buy? So what are the things that I want? Well, I want a camera. I want a good camera. Then you will say, I want good RAM. Now the question is, why do you want good RAM? Okay, so there are, let's say there is 2 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM, 6 GB. Now phones are coming with up 12 GB RAMs. Now simply they say, okay, if you are playing some huge games, let's say PUBG, it's anyways banned, but let us say that you are playing some bigger games like PUBG or some other energy consuming game, for your mobile to process so much of information at once, it wants huge memory. When I talk about huge memory, I am talking about RAM. There has to be a good RAM. You need to have it. Now, so how does this actually function? So there is, okay, I'll say first there is RAM. Now RAM will give instruction to register. Register will give information to control unit, and control unit will give it to ALU. So this is how it functions. Okay, so you need to have good RAM, you need to have good register, then you will have to have a good uh, what do I say, control unit, then you have to have good ALUs. But we never care about this because these are all anyways good. What we mainly focus on is on the RAM part of it. Then when I talk about primary memory, I am not just talking about RAM. I'm also talking about something called as ROM. That is read-only memory. Now, most of the people, uh, you know, uh, they confuse what exactly is this ROM. Okay, I am not talking about secondary memory now. I am talking about ROM. ROM means in your mobile phone, let us say in your mobile phone, uh, I give instruction in English. Okay, I give instruction in English. Or let us say I want to reduce my brightness. So what do? I'll just scroll down and I will say brightness low. So when I do this, phone automatically reduces the brightness. Question is, how did the phone understand? Whether my phone understands English? No, it only understands in binary 10110. So who is converting? Who is converting my English into that 1010 binary? So in every device, we have something called as translator. We have something called as translator, which translates the language what we speak to the language what it can understand. Now imagine by mistake, you delete that translator. You delete that translator. Your phone is bricked. When I say it is bricked, that means your phone do not understand what you're saying because there is nobody in the phone to translate what you're saying. Okay, so it is very important that your device manufacturers should not give you the permission to delete that translator. So that is where they are going to store this translator under ROM, that is read only memory. As the name says, you can only read it, you can't delete it. Okay, you can only use it, you can't edit it. That is called as ROM. Okay, clear with what is RAM and ROM? Okay, so there is a question, sir, what is the difference between processor and chipset? Well, this is to do with, which is the good mobile phone for me to purchase. Vinay, I'd say that this is not part of this particular discussion in the revision classes, but uh, put the same question in one fin and I'll answer there what exactly is the difference, because I don't want to deviate from the main topic, but I'm happy that you asked that question. Now, next question is, what do you mean by cache memory? Okay. What do you mean by cache memory? See, cache memory means the computer remembers. Okay, computer remembers for a very short period of time. For example, let us say that uh, I'm okay, one large PDF file I'm reading. Okay, the PDF file, let's say, is of let's say it is 1000 pages, and I want to find out one particular word where it is. So what will I do? I will press Control F to find that word in the entire document. Then I'll type what is the word that I want to find. So for the first time, for the computer to find, where and all this word is there, let's say it takes 20 seconds. But let us say after 10 minutes, I want to again find where this word actually is. When I do it, the computer will take less amount of time. Now, why is this? Because the first time when I searched, the search result is stored in something called as cache memory. Okay, it is stored in cache memory. So how is this cache useful to me? Is if I want to access the same information again, if I want to access the same information again, this cache memory will give that information back to me very quickly. Okay, so that is what cache memory is. So it is a smaller memory, it is faster memory which stores copies of data from most frequently used main memory locations. Simple as that. Now, cache is the property of locality of reference. So where exactly that file is located, where exactly that memory location is located. If I have to give you one more example, let us say that you know that in your laptop or in your computer you have one music file, one song file. You know just the name of it. So what will you do? You will go to your file explorer, type that name. So for the first time, your phone will take 1 minute to find that song. The next time when you find it, it will come immediately because your phone remembers where that file is located. So cache actually stores a reference or where the file is actually located. So cache memory is used to bridge the gap between register and primary memory, between your register, which is super fast, and RAM, which is comparatively slow. Between these two, you put the cache. So cache stores the recently used memories. Okay, so that's it. Now, okay. So Nityan is a library example, sir, for cache memory. I remember that is in our actual classes. This is revision, no? So I'm giving you some other perspective that how you can think differently. Okay. So next is, let's talk about virtual memory. Now this is the important question. This is there in your study material. Okay, study material, important question. What do you mean by virtual memory? Now virtual memory simply means, virtual means it does not really exist. Okay, it does not really exist. So let us say that you are playing one game, okay, in your phone. You're playing PUBG, and let us say your phone has only 1 GB of RAM. Okay, I don't know whether you can play with 1 GB of RAM or not. Just go with the flow. Your phone has only 1 GB of RAM. Now, when you play, and there comes a point where your game requires, let's say, 1.5 GB of RAM. 1.5 GB of RAM. Now your phone has only how much? Only 1 GB of RAM. So it still requires 0.5 GB or 500 MB more of RAM. But your phone does not have it. So now there are only two options. One is the game should stop. Game will say, look, you don't have enough RAM, so we are not going to execute it. Corrupt, or the game stops in the middle. Or you have to borrow that memory from your secondary memory. You have your storage, no? You have your internal storage 4 GB, or let's say 32 GB, 64 GB of whatever your internal memory is there. We call it as secondary memory. So it has to get that 0.5 GB or 500 MB from your secondary memory. So it is only a temporary arrangement. It is only a temporary arrangement in which your operating system, that Android is there, no? What you use, your Android is pulling that 500 MB memory from the secondary memory and pretending it as you have 1.5 GB of RAM. In reality, you only have how much? Only 1 GB of RAM. So what is this extra 500 MB? It is a virtual memory. We also call it as paging file. Okay, so that is what virtual memory is. So read this point, what it says. Virtual memory is an allocation of hard disk space to help RAM. Simple point. Or else what will happen? If you don't help the RAM, your game will crash. So next, it is not a separate device as such. There is nothing in reality called as virtual memory. It is nothing but a temporary arrangement which is supported by some operating system. Okay, so your operating system should do that. Next, now if a computer lacks the RAM needed to run a program or operation, Windows operating system moves data from RAM to a space called as paging file. We discussed this. Next, moving data to and from the paging file frees up RAM and you can complete the task. Again, the same thing again and again. Nothing special. Shall we go to the next point? What is secondary memory? Now, if I have to talk about what is secondary memory, it is nothing but, in a phone when you purchase, you have that 32 GB, 64 GB, 128 GB, 256 GB, whatever it is. That is the secondary memory what we are talking about. Okay, it could be in your phone only, or in your computer only, or it could be a separate hard disk that you have, or it could be a pen drive that you have, it could be a DVD that you have, it could be a CD that you could have, or in the olden times, it could be the floppy disk what you have. It could be anything, okay, which you use it to store the data. Now, why do we use the secondary memory? The reason, the main reason, it is cheap. It is cheaper. So now, if you want to store, let's say 1 TB of data, 1 TB basically means, let's say one very good quality movie, let's say it is in 1 GB. So you can store 100 movies. You can store 100 movies in 1 TB of hard disk. Now 1 TB of hard disk, you will get it for some, 4,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees. So secondary memory is very cheap compared to the primary memory. Okay. And secondary memory is permanent, whereas RAM is not permanent. You play the game, as long as the game is there, the game gets played, but that gets stored nowhere. The moment you stop the game, the memory is erased. So when you start it again, you start fresh. But in secondary memory, you can store everything. Okay, you can store movies, music, files, documents, and upon that it is cheaper. So what are the features? One is non-volatility. That is, let's say there's a movie in one pen drive. Even if you remove from the system and again when you put it, there is still the movie. So just because you removed it, the movie does not get deleted. So they say it is a non-volatile data. The data still remains. Then it is a great capacity. You can store huge 100 movies, 1,000 movies. Then there is greater economy. That is, it is cheap, dead cheap. Then, but one more thing is, it is slow. It is not as fast as your primary memory is. It is very slow, but it is cheap. And it is portability. Portability means you can move it from one place to another. You can take your hard disk from one place to another. You can go pen drive from one place to another place. You can go. Clear with this? Any questions? All right. Let's go to another question. That is, what is output devices? Now, what is output device? Basically, when I give information to the system, the system will process that information. And then system will give the output to me. Now, output can come in different forms. Okay. Now, for example, I can print a document. Or system can give me an audio output. So let us talk about different types of output devices one by one. The first one is textual output. So textual output basically means, let's say I type something in my phone. Okay, what is that I can see is a textual output. Or let us say I browse something in Google, and Google comes back with some result. That is also a textual output. Or else I print some document, again it is a textual output. Or else I can have something called as graphical output. What is graphical output? In textual, I can only see text, some letters, but in graphical I can see photos, I can see drawings, I can see charts, I can see animation. So these are all the types of output. Next one is tactile output. Now normally if it is a textual output or if it is a graphical output, the blind people cannot see. So that is where when you print it out, the print will have some raised lines so that it becomes like braille, so that you can just touch and you can see it. So that is what tactile output is. Next is something we have called as audio output. Now what is audio output? Audio output means, you play some song, okay, you click on play, the system will process and the output will come in audio. Again, the same thing goes with video output as well. Okay, very simple. Next, so these are the different hardware devices. Quick revision. There are four things. One is for input, one is for process, one is for storage, one is for output. Very clear? Okay. Now, coming back, 10th question, differentiate between RAM and ROM. Now, before I explain, I want you to take 10 seconds and think. See, ROM, I said, ROM is not your secondary memory. ROM is that small memory, what is there where we store some important files like translators. So what is the difference between RAM and ROM? Think, then I will answer. All right. So there is the 10th question, difference between RAM and ROM. Okay. Random access memory and read-only memory. Now, random access memory basically is a volatile in nature. So what do you mean by volatile? I said, once you play, game is done, the data is removed. That is called as volatile. Once you turn off your system and turn it on, nothing remains. Again, the RAM is freed. So RAM is volatile in nature, means information is lost as soon as power is turned off. Whereas in read-only memory, I am not talking about movies, I'm not talking about songs, I am talking about translators. Okay, so even if you turn off your system and turn it on, the data is not lost. Data is still there. So it is non-volatile in nature. Next, purpose is to hold programs and data while they are in use. That is what RAM is. But ROM used to store small amount of information for quick reference by CPU, small amount of data. That is what we call it as the translators. Next, information can be read. Information can be read as well as modified. You can change this information, but can you change the translator? Answer is no, it cannot be modified. You cannot even delete it. Now, what is the role of RAM in your computer? It is responsible for storing the instruction and data that the program is using at that present moment. Simple. If you're playing that game, watching a movie, playing some song, using some Excel spreadsheet, computer will store that data for a temporary purpose. We call it as RAM. On the other hand, ROM is used by whom? It is used by manufacturers to store data and programs like translators that is used repeatedly. Okay, this is the difference between RAM and ROM. Okay. So first 10 questions done. 1 hour done. So we will take this session for next 30 more minutes, 1.5 hours. We will complete as many questions as possible. If we are not able to complete, we will take one more session and we will complete it. We will not hurry. Our objective is to complete as many questions as possible by understanding what each question says. Okay, any question till now? Ask. So okay, so Pooja says, sir, I could not understand ROM, sir. What is read-only memory? Okay, Pooja, I already explained it, but you specifically pointed it out. So I'll take a minute and I'll explain it. Okay, so others, please bear with me for 1 minute. What is ROM? ROM simply means, look, now, same example I gave, I'll give it again. So see, if I'm using my phone, okay, let's say I'm using my phone in the night and the brightness is too much. I want to reduce the brightness of my phone. So what should I do? I will, use my phone and I will drag it and reduce the brightness. So what am I doing? I'm just pulling my finger from one end to another end and the brightness becomes lower. Question is, always, one should wonder how the phone is understanding that I want the brightness to be reduced. So whether phone really understands English or whether it really understands what am I touching, answer is no. The computer, mobile phones, any devices thinks only in terms of binary. When I say binary, it is 10110, like that. Now, how does this phone, whenever I give instruction, I usually give it in English. Now, when I give this instruction in English to my phone, how does my device understands? So there has to be somebody called as translator, some device, some space, something called as translator, which converts or which translates my English into that binary. That is called as translator. Now, this translator is located in your phone. Now the question is, what happens if you delete this translator? Will your phone ever be able to understand what you said? Answer is no. So this translator should be stored in a secure place which user should not be able to delete. Okay, that is where it is stored somewhere. We call it as ROM, that is read only memory. That is, you cannot delete that. You cannot delete. You can only read. You can only use it. You cannot delete. Read does not usually mean, like when I read one paper. Okay, it is not read only. Read only simply means you can use it, you can't delete it. That is something called as read only memory. Okay, so that is what ROM is. RAM example is Excel doing some work. Yes, it is. Okay, some discussion about something is going on. Let's shall we for this class restrict to only discussion about this. Let's think about a greater good, that there are so many people involved in this class, so let everybody understand what is taught in this. And if some questions are there, you can definitely take it up with the help desk. Okay, so even in IndigoLearn there is a help desk. Next, let's go to question number 11. What are the activities and functions of system software and operating system? Now, one of the example for a system software is operating system. So now you think, okay, before I explain to you, you say, there's always fight between these people. They say, Android is good. And then there will be somebody comes and says, my iPhone is good, iOS is good. So when you say Android is good or iOS is good, what exactly are you referring to? Because look, in Android also there is WhatsApp, in iOS also there is WhatsApp, here also there is Instagram, there also there is Instagram, here also there is OneFin application, there also there is OneFin application. So applications, we are not talking about applications because both the places applications are same. So you are fighting over what? You're fighting over operating system. Now tell me, when you say Android is good, what are you really referring to? Or somebody when they say iOS is good, what are you actually referring to? Can you give me an answer? Why do you feel Android is good compared to iPhone, or why iPhone is good compared to Android? What are your general thought process? Okay, Pooja, I'll take up your question after explaining this. I understood what your question is. I'll take it up later. Let me complete this OS part of this. Okay, somebody says it is security. Okay, oh, which is more secure? You feel Apple is more secure? Okay, I give it to you. Okay, Apple is more secure. Only security part, nothing else. Okay, now first is we need to understand what is operating system. Now, your phone, okay, when you take up your phone, it is nothing but a brick. Okay, what is brick? Brick is what we use for construction purpose. It is nothing but that. So better press a power button. When I press a power button, my phone display turns on. Or when I long press my power button, it switches on. Okay, so now this what I see is nothing but a hardware. What I see is a hardware. Now this is a human. What you see, I am a human. So for me to interact with my hardware, I want a software. I repeat this line, understand it very carefully. For a human to interact with a device or to interact with the hardware, he requires one software. We call that software as operating system. Okay, we call that software as operating system. Now, what are the different functions of operating systems. Okay, we will study that. Then let us come back to the discussion about what operating system is. First function is hardware function. Now what is hardware function? It simply says OS acts as an intermediary between who and all application program and hardware. Now let us say this is the hardware what I'm using. This is the hardware what I'm using. And in this hardware, I want to send one message to you. I want to send a WhatsApp message to you. Now, WhatsApp is an application software. It is not an operating software. It is a application software. So for me to use that application software, first thing is I want operating system. So I need to have Android, and upon Android, I will install WhatsApp and then I will use WhatsApp. So between my hardware and WhatsApp, what is there? There is operating system. There is operating system. So it will act as a intermediary between hardware and the application software. Okay. Next one is it gives you user interface. Now what is UI? Now let us go back to some 2000 or 1990s or 2000 where we had something called as something called as DOS, that is disk operating system. There, even if I want to print a file or even if I want to open new folder, there was nothing mouse and all. I had to type everything. Everything was code. Everything was code. Even if I want to refresh my screen, it was a code. Okay. But now when I look at the computer, everything I can do with the help of mouse. I want to select that particular corner, this particular corner. So this is something I call it as user interface. This something I call it as user interface. Now UI, there are certain operating system. Let us say we have something called as Linux. So that operating system does not have great user interface. Okay, again, there also it is command line functions. If you want to create a new folder, if you want to go to a different folder, if you want to come back, everything you have to write a code. Okay, you have to write commands. But in Windows, it is you have a good user interface. So what is the purpose of operating system? To give you the user interface. Next one is hardware independence. now now is hardware independence. Now, when we talk about hardware independence, we simply say, let's say that I am a developer. I develop uh, some software. Give me an example of some software. Let's say, okay, let's say I am developing OneFin application. Okay, OneFin is the software which you can use to watch classes. Now, I am developing that OneFin software. Now, my question is, I am developing the software to lot of students. Okay, I'm developing it to lot of students. Now, the students may use different mobile phones. One may use, let's say, one may use OnePlus. One may use. I'm only talking about Android. Okay, I'm only talking about Android. One may use OnePlus. One may use Xiaomi. One may use Redmi. One may use. So many phones are there. So should I develop this application to individual phones? Should I develop this application to individual phones? Answer is no, because there are 1,000 types of phones. So I cannot develop this software separately for individual types of phones. But what will I do? I will develop this application. I will develop this application for a particular operating system. I will say, okay, whoever is using Android, let's say 8.0, I will, this application will work on any device which supports Android 8.0. Then I don't have to develop application for each and every mobile phone. All that I have to do is I have to develop software for a particular operating system. So I don't have to develop 1,000 different versions. Only thing I have to do is one version. I have to load it on operating system and everybody can use it. So for an application developer, I don't have to depend on which hardware you are using. I have to depend only on the operating system what you're using. So I get a independence from the hardware what you're doing or hardware what you're using. I have to develop software only for the particular operating system. Then there is something called as memory management. Now, memory management is, you know, uh, in our mobile phones as well, in our Windows software, Windows PC as well, you may use different applications at once. Okay, you may use Google Chrome, you can use Firefox, you can keep your Excel sheet open, Word sheet open, PPT open. So you can keep multiple tabs open, multiple tasks open. So this is something called as task management. This also your operating system does. For example, Nokia, the phone which was ultra popular back then, they came up with their operating software, something called as Lumia. It was a Windows operating software what they were using for mobile phones. Now that never supported multiple tasks at once. So at any given point of time, you could use only one application. That is where it was not a great hit. But on the other hand, Android allowed you to open multiple tabs at once. So all these things are supported by operating systems. At the same time, what is memory management? Memory management means every software what you keep open requires some amount of RAM. Okay. Now, how do they get that some amount of RAM is allocated by operating system? Now, Android will say, okay, your Excel file, okay, take 100 MB of RAM. Okay, your Word file, take 50 MB of RAM. So this distribution of memory is there. No, the management of memory is actually done by memory management. Okay, so when this memory management goes wrong, your computer gets stuck. That is where you press Control Alt Delete, then you go to Task Manager and you kill all the tasks. Okay, but basically this is what we use. Next one is networking capability. That is when you purchase your phone for the first time and you want to connect to the Wi-Fi. So how is your hardware connecting to the Wi-Fi? But it is only possible because your operating system allows you to do that. Next one is logical access security. Nobody knows it more better than you. That your mobile phones. When somebody tries to open it, will ask for some pin, some pattern, some code, some fingerprint. So all these are called as securities, logical access securities. If you know the answer, you can open it. Now, this is also supported by your Android. Okay, this is supported by your iOS. This is supported by your Windows. Okay, these are something called as logical access securities. Next, file management. Again, file management is a feature which is offered by operating system. For example, uh, you want to store your file in C drive, in D drive, in E drive. So how can you actually do that? Okay, so it is also supported by your operating system. So you stored something in your D drive and now you want to go and search it in D drive, and you go and search it, it is there in your D drive. So everything is facilitated by your operating system. Okay, so 11 questions done. Any questions you have? Okay, so shall we, okay, last 10 minutes. Shall we go to one more question? What is DBMS and explain its significance? Will you read the question? Hmm. Okay. So what is DBMS? Explain its significance. Now, I guess this is the only question what we'll be able to take it up. Though it looks smaller, though it looks very small, uh, the explanation is very in detail because I want you to understand this concept, because this concept is going to be used in part 2 and part 3. Now, let's take a very simple example to understand what basically is DBMS. Say you are the owner of one grocery store. One grocery store. Now in your grocery store, there is only one room. Imagine there is only one room. In that room, there is a counter where customer comes and stand and they ask for, like, give me 1 kg of sugar, or 2 kg of rice. That is one place. Then in that same room, you are storing all the commodities. Everything is also there in that room only. Okay. And everything is messed. Nothing is in order. Okay. Some sugar is here, some coffee powder is there. And every time one customer comes, you're just rotating, roaming in your that one small shop. Now, this is one scenario. Think of another scenario in which there is another grocery store which is owned by your friend. Now there is a separate counter where customer comes and stands and says, give me that, give me this. All goods are stored in separate room. Remember this, very important. All the goods are stored in separate room in a proper order. In a proper order. So all the soaps stored at one place, all the biscuits stored at another place. Every particular item has a particular order and it is stored in that manner only. Now, the second store, what I said, is a class example of what DBMS is. See, in shop number 1 that is owned by you, there is grocery items. In shop number 2, there is grocery items. Okay. So in both the places, there is groceries. There are items. Both the places, there is coffee powder. But you tell me, in which shop the customer will be more happy? Now don't say that customer will be happy in my shop more. No, tell me properly. Customer will be happy in that shop where he can come and quickly say, okay, give me one soap. And as a store owner, your friend knows where the soap is. He can quickly go and give it back to your customer. Or else in your case, what will happen? You will spend 30 minutes searching for soap, and then you will say, oh, soap is not there, out of stock. So when we talk about data also, data can be unstructured. That is, in one place only you dump all the data. Okay, every data is there. Or you can store data separately in a systematic manner. In a systematic manner. So storing of data separately is something called as database. You are creating a database. It is not DBMS. It is not DBMS. It is database. It is stored separately. Now, then what is database management system? Database management system simply means a software which will help you to manage this database. I repeat this line, understand it. So it is not a super complicated topic, simple topic. What it says, database management system is one software. It is one software which will allow you to manage the database. When I say manage the database, what am I referring to? Let us say, go back to this grocery example. Now, as on date, you are selling only, let's say 10 types of commodities. Now you want to add one more type of commodity into your storeroom. So you are using this separate software to add one extra item. Let us say that you don't want to sell soaps anymore. Okay, you don't want to sell soaps anymore. So you want to delete, remove it. So to delete, you will use one software. That software which will help to add some item, delete some item from the database is something called as database management system. Let me give one very practical example. Okay, let's come out of this grocery example. That is, that is, say one college is maintaining the data of its students. Now they can write it down on a piece of paper. Well, that is also a collection of data, but in an unorganized way. They can also store this data in an Excel sheet. Now, Excel sheet is not a database. Though you can have a huge amount of data, it is still not a database. Why? Because there is no security in this. It is not a very structured way of storing. It's simply you're opening one Excel spreadsheet and you're just putting rows and columns. It is not a database. So database means you store the data in a structural way. And you can't directly go simply add or delete the data. You have to use a separate software, something called as DBMS, to add or delete the file. Sir, can you give me one very practical real life example for DBMS? I can do that. Listen. So in phone, you use WhatsApp. So every message what you make, it gets stored in your phone. Okay. So where it is located, it is located, it is not stored as some Excel file. Okay. It is not stored as some Excel file. It is stored at a database. You have to open your gallery and you have to go to your file explorer. Then you will find WhatsApp. Then there is data. Then there is backup. Then you will find this particular folder. Now, if you go there, now, let us say you open your file explorer. You go to that particular database. Can you click and open that? Answer is no, you can't open from there. If you want to open it, you want a separate software to open it. Okay. So what will you do? You will come back to your WhatsApp, and in that WhatsApp, you will search for that message. Okay. So this is what DBMS is. Sir, whether WhatsApp is DBMS? No. There is a part of WhatsApp which will act as DBMS. Now, let us say you want to delete some message from that database. Can you directly go and delete? No, you have to use a separate software to delete that message. So as of now, you will use only WhatsApp only. So there is a part of software which will function as a database management system. So again, in a nutshell, what is DBMS? DBMS means a software which will help you or which will enable you to manage your database. So in database, let's say there is 10, you have a college and there are 100 students. Now you want to add one more student data. Okay. You use DBMS. You want to delete one student's data. You use DBMS. You want to change the mobile number of one student, you use DBMS. So to add, delete, modify, create, to do anything, you use DBMS. So what is DBMS? DBMS is a tool. DBMS is an application which allows you to manage your data. Okay. Next. So there is a question. I'll take that question a little later. Let me complete it. Mostly we're at the end of this. So this is what DBMS is. So they say DBMS is a tool to integrate the information flow within an entity. What does it even mean? Say for an example, in the organization, I said I'm a college and I'm maintaining students of all the students in one particular database. Now this database can be used by everybody. Now everybody in the sense, not your neighbors and all, everybody in the college. Let's say your faculties can use the database, or the library people can use the database. Canteen people, if they want, they can use your database. So everybody need not create their own records of the students. One person will create one database and everybody can use it. Okay, so it will solve the problems of redundancy. What is redundancy? Everybody having their own record of data, that is called as redundancy. So database, if you have a database, you don't have to store the same data again and again. So again, DBMS highlights the importance of data. Agreed. DBMS provides the facility to create and maintain a well-organized database. Yes. So there is a database, you use the software to maintain it well. Then DBMS is a software. This is very important. This is what I was referring to. The DBMS is a software that aid in organizing, controlling, and using the data needed by the application program. Application access to DBMS, which then accesses the data. I said there is WhatsApp, there is database. Okay, so if WhatsApp wants to delete, if you want to delete, one person's message, you want to delete one person's message. So can you directly delete from WhatsApp? No. WhatsApp has to use something called as DBMS that you can't see. Okay, that you can't see, but WhatsApp will use a DBMS to delete that particular record. So this is what DBMS is. So next question is, what are the different activities already discussed? So I'm just going to read it through. You can add, you can delete, you can insert, you can modify, you can delete, and you can retrieve. You can retrieve the data. Retrieve means sense, let's say uh, let's say one faculty uh, calls your office. Okay, office in the sense the college office, and says I want the number of this particular student. So office people, what will they do? They will put your roll number and the database will give the mobile number. Okay, that is called as retrieval. That is also possible. So there is one question. Okay, this is it. This is the 13 questions what I've took. Now I'll answer any question that you have, and then we can call it off. Okay, all right. So okay, sir, is secondary memory what comes as storage with the mobile? Then what is primary memory on the mobile? Huh. Now when I'm talking about primary, no, see, I know this is the confusion what people have. So normally what we understand is primary memory means internal memory, secondary memory means what the memory card what we put. But in your subject, in your syllabus, primary memory means RAM. In your subject, primary memory means RAM. Secondary memory means your whatever storage facility what you have, no, it could be internal or it could be memory card, whatever you put, that becomes the external one, secondary one. Sir, what is the difference between database and data warehouse? Puja, that question we will answer. Data warehouse we have not explained yet. That is a concept yet to come. Probably I may take it up in the next class. Okay, I'll answer it. You come in the next class and I'll see to it that that question is answered. Very simple concept. Any other questions you have? It is 1 o'clock. I'm supposed to call off the classes. I'll wait for 1 minute. You can ask the questions. If there are no questions, then the class stands adjourned for the day. Okay, I see no questions. Yeah. So thank you for your patience and listening to the class. Volatile, non-volatile difference, sir. Next class, I'll do it. Come for the next class.